All right, in today's video, I hopped out to the island of Venice downtown district, and I wanted to talk about the Southwest Florida real estate demand, how it happened, and is it here to stay? And for those that don't know me real quick, I'm Adam Hancock. I have a real estate group here in Southwest Florida, and I post daily video content on Florida relocation and investment guidance. Please like and subscribe for access to over 100 videos in the last 12 months and counting. All right, so at this point, I'm sure it's no surprise to anyone that this entire area has gone absolutely bonkers real estate wise. And this is across the board almost unanimously, but especially in Southwest Florida, from Clearwater, Tampa, St. Petersburg, all through Sarasota, Naples, all the way through West Palm, Miami, and beyond. It's kind of gone crazy, and I think there's a couple of reasons that this happened, and some of those reasons are old school reasons that are always going to exist, in my opinion. Some of those reasons are new things that have never ever happened, and all of this merges in the same timeline and kind of creates this absolute explosion of demand. And so I'm going to talk about that exact concept, and then at the end I want to talk a little bit about my thoughts of what may happen in the future. Is this here to stay? Where do we go from here? That kind of thing. So that is our itinerary, and let's get into it. Okay, in the first section of things that I don't believe will change, I have three main items I want to talk about. The first one is climate driven demand. I think climate driven demand is always going to exist for our area. So just thinking of the states that come here, the Northeast, Chicago, Canada, California not so much, but parts of Europe, the reason that people come here, this is the reasons they've always come here. It's the 300 days of sunshine, it's all these kind of reasons, and that's how the snowbird thing exists. That's how the permanent relocation for retirement exists. So I think that as number one, I think that's going to be tried and true. That's happening now as it normally does. But I also don't think that one's going to change. So that's our number one. Let's hop to number two. Second one of things I don't think are going to change very soon is just total cost of ownership and total cost of living and doing business in Florida. So, just the same thing. The states people are migrating from are almost the opposite of what we're working in. So no state income tax, the benefits to retirement, benefits for how you liquidate your income later, all these kind of benefits. And then the house cost itself is interesting, annual taxes, that whole deal. So what I don't think is going to change is as even prices get higher here, it's on a scale of perspective versus there. So what people are paying in New York, and again, these same states, right? What they're paying in Canada, what they're paying in California, what they're paying in Seattle. So that value proposition is always going to exist. Becoming a resident here and having the values of permanent residency are always going to exist, whether you're here for the full year or not. The rentability is always going to exist. So I think total cost of living, owning, and that whole package in Florida, especially Southwest Florida, I don't think is going to become less attractive versus the comparison. So that's number two. Let's hop to our last one, number three. Okay, and the third one kind of evolves. It's an umbrella of all these topics, but I think it's an obvious one. But I think there's some subtleties that matter. So the third one's just purely lifestyle, right? So what the sunshine creates as year-long amenities with the fishing that exists in the Gulf Coast, the golf, all the things you can do because of the weather and how you can live here most of the year, I think is important. And I think this creates like kind of the stuff that happens anyway. This is people retiring here regardless of their timeline changing because of COVID. This is stuff that would have already happened related to lifestyle. I think that stuff, again, just because we're at a weird time and some things have changed, it's not changing kind of the pattern that normal people are doing things as well as the people that are doing things early. So I think lifestyle is very important in that respect. And I think that's kind of the base lifestyle things that are going to always exist in our area. It's not going to be less fun to have vitamin D for 12 months a year versus being cold and gray for months on end. That's not going to change, right? So I think that's the other one that always is going to exist. It hovers, and that one's interesting more with what's emerging as new, what we're going to talk about next, because that's kind of escalated and changed timelines of things that already existed as a base level, but will emerge into a forced urgency in another level, but still backed by the same moves. So that kind of wraps up what I don't think is going to change anytime soon. Let's talk about what's new that's never happened before. And that's kind of changed the whole landscape of making this demand be like something we've never seen. Okay, now onto our anomalies. So what's created the demand like it is now, like I said, is all the stuff that hasn't changed. And then we have like 3-4 major things that have literally never existed in our like recent lifetime that have kind of merged to ramp up all the stuff at once. So now you have these four main characteristics that turn into 8, and that creates something that is uncharted that no one's ready for. So let's get into that. Regardless of your political views, let's talk lockdowns as our number one, things that are new that we've never seen before. So lockdowns being in the states that are, lockdowns being very heavy in the states that are heavy relocation states for Florida, lockdowns being prolonged, covering full winter months. All this kind of stuff's emerged to create like you might have not done something as early as you're doing it now because it's just wearing people down, right? And then they come to Florida and it's so different. So it's like that polar opposite thing that's creating the people that would already move here. It's happening earlier. That's creating states that like California. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later here, but that's emerging a little quicker. So I think that's our number one. I think that's kind of, most people, that's kind of self-explanatory, but the prolonged nature of that mixed with this cold environment, people are just getting tired of it and they're starting to maybe look at options that they wouldn't have looked at. They're seeing the other side and then they're just going for it. So that's our number one. Okay, what else is new? So let's talk, one that's really interesting is work from home. So COVID's creating an environment where people get not only work from home temporarily, several people are communicating they're working from home permanently now. So what happens there is, perfect example, say you were gonna retire 2 years from now. Well, now they're like, just mail it in. You're working from home the whole time, guaranteed, right? So then those people are like, well, why? I was gonna retire in Florida in 2 years. So why not just go now, work out the rest, gain all the appreciation for the 2 years of ownership already. It's getting kind of crazy on purchasing anyway. So maybe we'll build a house, it'll be ready in 12 months. And they're, and even like husband and wife kind of playing like, someone comes here, you get full-time residency. So what it's just, in essence, it's doing, it's making people do something sooner, because why not, right? Like, get what you want, get out of the cold, and just take advantage of, without losing the opportunity cost of waiting. So that's something that I didn't really see coming, and I think people now are like, well, everybody's doing fine working from home, so why not like save the overhead and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's a good thing to happen to corporate America. But I also think it's something that severely is changing the landscape of the speed at which people move here. Okay, so let's talk about number 3. This one's really interesting. We're gonna talk about 4 here. Number 3 is something that like is truly like uncharted territory. So I was listening to something this morning that said this hasn't happened for like 110 years. But how cold as absolute shit it has gotten in Austin, Texas, excuse my French, is that what, a lot of what was happening in the West Coast of like kind of my clients that I spoke to is a lot of like California was going to Texas for the same benefits you come to Florida and Austin, especially because it's like Silicon Valley times 2 or like junior or whatever. But it's so inland. So if you don't mind that and the Gulf Coast, then a lot of people from California would go to Texas instead of Florida because of the benefits of ownership and cost and all that kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden, Austin, Texas is 1 degree outside. And now my calls of California and Seattle, which again, that's a huge perspective of cost versus here, are really emerging. And I think people are just like, kind of like, Texas is such a weird place climate wise. Like, I don't think it's definitely not on my readily available radar to think Austin, Texas as being a snow type of city. And then you're just not, it's kind of like when I lived in Nashville, North Carolina, what happened was they're just not ready for it. So then you got like, it's like kind of freezing, kind of not, it's icing over, you got snow covering the ice, full lockdown, people don't know what to do. And now I'm even getting like customers from Austin, Texas trying to move here, which like, wouldn't it be super common, as far as the perspective? So that's our number 3. I think that one is really unique. Okay, so now we've established our baseline. I think these are the, 7, 8 things that I think converged at one time. Super anomaly. I don't know if we'll ever see this again. It's very rare in my opinion. It's just so many things in influx at the moment that created this one-time demand spike. But with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about what I think is going to happen in the future. So what I'm seeing on demand, so I have a unique clientele. All my people are out of state and out of country for the most part. Everybody's trying to do similar things. It's usually investment or relocation or both. And so I kind of say I got like a straight bead to what I already saw happening before this happened and then where it changed. So I think in a couple ways, I think there's a lot of things that are going to stay. I think for all the value that already existed, I think that's not going to change. And I think that obviously is going to keep things the same. Now people got this urgency of like, this demand spiked all these prices and they're like, gosh, if I don't do something now, I'm not gonna be able to afford it. I had someone buy a house 8 years in advance of moving, which is crazy, to rent, I like where their head's at, but it's an interesting move. So I think you got people that were permanently changed by this situation, that now it's going to change how they act. So even though the situation was maybe temporary, it's not going to change the effect it had on people. And then I also think there's things that just are tried and true that are going to continue to happen. That being said, even though I do think that a heavy amount of the demand is going to exist, I do think certain things are going to ease. You know, I think when the lockdowns loosen, I think when it's less cold, all the kind of antithesis of the stuff I mentioned, I think that people are going to be like, you know, cool with it for a period of time. Like they were fine with the city they're living in now. And then some people are not going to be able to work from home forever, even though maybe companies think they like that now. I think I could see some of that reversing back. So I do think things are going to ease. What I'm kind of seeing at builders with the lot availability, I think some of that's going to ease. So I'm hoping this is like a post-April, May. Again, I think it's going to collide with like it getting warmer in other states. And then the people that are going to do it anyway are still going to come with more availability, hopefully. And that because of the other people that backed off. And so I think that's kind of where I see it generally going. And I want to talk about one more thing real quick. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about, this one's always like super interesting to folks just because it feels like you get some cost advantage or a special opportunity. But what I do see kind of coming down the pipe is the REO market, the short sale market. We're seeing the people that are like deep in short sales historically, kind of the banks starting to gear up personnel wise to prepare. So you got a couple things I think in there that you have the renters that aren't paying their rent right now, you have that can't be forced out, you know? So there's this like non-public record stuff, or I mean, it's hard to find, right? There's a amount of information that basically people, the minute that they are not going to be able to stay in that house, they're gone. So I think you're going to have a bunch of stuff that emerges from like just the general rental market. And then I also think like what's going to be interesting to me is like the way they're raising these base prices and all the increases that are happening around new construction, how much people are paying for resales. I think there's some fragility in this spike that's happening so quick, just because I know not everyone's head's in the place where I think they're doing it at a straight urgency. Some of those are a fragile ecosystem. So I think there could be some dip that happens related to just specifically what's happening now, because like these things are appraising at like, you know, they're raising these lot prices and they're raising these base prices and they're still appraising those things with, I mean, and they feel like they're jumping a little too high in the same window. Now this isn't across the board. This is specific communities, areas that I think when it makes sense. But I do see that now. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years, but I definitely see that coming here in the next cycle. All right, other than that, that kind of wraps it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this little different location. This is Venice Island, right outside of Venice Beach area. We walked right past that earlier in the video. But that's kind of what I just wanted to talk about, these kind of things. I think this is a real-time stuff. I think it's really relevant to what's going to happen next too. And so I just want to kind of share my thoughts on that in general. Please stick around. Look at my description. There's plenty of contact information. There's resources there. Please check out a couple videos related to this topic below, and I will see you on the next one.